Rest in peace to Gene Hackman. They found him passed away along with his wife and his dog. And they initial reports is they don't suspect foul play, but something happened. So, rest in peace to Gene. Not just the greatest actor of his generation, just one of the greatest actors ever. And I was just thinking about Gene like a few weeks ago because I haven't seen him in a long time. And what happened was back in 2004, he hasn't acted in anything, I don't think, since 2004, because he had done the Royal Tenenbaums, and people, I'm not a big fan of that film, but people love that film. And I guess his doctor told Gene that he had either stop acting or it's going to mess up his heart because he's such an intense actor. And at that point, he was in his 70s, and Gene just knows one speed, hard. And I guess they say, hey, if you want to live a full life, a fuller life, you're going to have to retire. And he stopped acting, which is crazy. But Gene could not only do drama, but he also could do comedy. I just mentioned the Royal Tenenbaums, but he also did, he played Lex Luthor, a funny Lex Luthor in Superman. Even as a kid, I was a little bit upset with his Lex Luthor. He was funny, but Lex wasn't funny. Lex was cutting. He was mean. He was a businessman. He was bald. And Gene was like, I'm not doing bald. He had a mustache, so Richard Donner, the director, convinced him some way to cover his mustache. But Gene was like, I'm not going bald. It's like, I said, that's not Lex Luthor. But no, but Gene's Lex was fine. He did that. He did The Birdcage with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. He was in the film Heartbreakers. Oh, I love that film. Heartbreakers with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sigourney Weaver. So he could do comedy and he could do drama, right? So I was thinking, like, if you didn't know who Gene Hackman was, or you was thinking about, hey, I want to watch some Gene Hackman films, here is a primer for anybody who wants to do a Gene Hackman film festival, or you just don't know anything about Gene Hackman, even though you have seen him before in film. First and foremost, let's start off with Bonnie and Clyde. His first film, Bonnie and Clyde, with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. Bonnie and Clyde changed cinema. The shootout at the end was just so realistic. It was very Sam Peckinpah-ish. Fantastic film, brilliant film. And 1967 was a pivotal year because you had Bonnie and Clyde with Warren Beatty, and then later you have The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman. Now I'll talk about the reason 1967 is important later. And that streak ran from 67 to 76 because we go from Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate to Network, the film Network, All the President's Men, Rocky. That's when that film ended, and then we have the blockbuster era with Star Wars and all that stuff. So shout out to that time period between 1967 and 1976, one of the greatest eras ever in film, if not the greatest. So another Gene Hackman film you should check out is The French Connection. That documentary film style that we see with that has cop shows and you're like they're following somebody around with a camera, that came from The French Connection. Gene Hackman plays Popeye Doyle, one of the greatest film characters ever. Gene won an Oscar for that, his first Oscar for that. Fantastic film. It is the beginning of the anti-cop hero. It is the beginning of the gritty cop drama that we would see later in Al Pacino's Serpico. We would see that style again in Hill Street Blues. We would see that style again in NYPD Blue with the character Sipowicz. We would see that with that character again in The Shield with I think his name is Vic Massey. It's just a fantastic film. If there's one film you should watch from this list, it's The French Connection. Just a brilliant piece of cinema with one of the greatest car chase scenes ever. This isn't Fast and the Furious where they use CGI to jump from one building to the next. No, they had a hardcore chase scene on the streets for real. The only chase scene that might be as good or better is Bullet with Steve McQueen. Outside of that, there's nothing better than the chase scene in The French Connection on them streets. It is fantastic. Shout out to French Connection. You had the film The Conversation. Usually directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Usually when people talk about Coppola, they go to Godfather 1 and 2 and jump to Apocalypse Now. The Conversation was in between Godfather 1 and 2. It's a quieter performance by Gene Hackman. He's not as bombastic as he was as Popeye Doyle. It's a quieter performance, but a great performance and a great film. Any other time, if it wasn't for The Godfather, The Conversation might be the greatest Coppola film ever. But that Godfather 1 and 2 is just great, man. So you got those films from the 70s. Oh, yeah, and the Poseidon Adventure. So the Poseidon Adventure is funny just because I think he did it for the check. That was the second of the disaster films. We had Airport, and then you had the Poseidon Adventure. No CGI. Like in Titanic, where they have a flipped over boat, is a mixture of sets and CGI. There is no CGI. So that's real stunt work, real people falling, real stuff falling, people getting hurt. And Gene Hackman, I think, thought it was just going to be a film that would be last for a few months, and it's become a cult classic. People love it. It's still a great film, all-star cast. I think that maybe one of the highest grossing films when it came out in '72. Fantastic film, fantastic popcorn film. Like some of those other dudes wouldn't do it. Probably in that era. I can't see Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, at Robert Duvall, Warren Beatty. I would never see those guys doing it, but Gene did it because Gene was that type of dude. So let's jump to the '90s, right? In the '90s, Gene Hackman, along with Robert Duvall, Jack Nicholson, and even Dustin Hoffman, they were now co-stars to these younger actors who are now lead actors. And those younger lead actors had to bring it against those guys. Those guys, back in the '70s, man, it was a murderer's row. You had Pacino, De Niro, Warren Beatty, Robert Redford, Gene Hackman, Dustin Hoffman, Elliot Gould, Bruce Dern, Donald Sutherland. It was a murderer's row of actors. So if you're these younger actors in the '90s, now you're acting against these vetted, these veterans, these trained, mostly trained theater actors. That's the thing. Like a lot of those guys from that time period were mostly theater actors, or went with Stella Adler or the Actor Studio. Like those guys were the real deal. So now these guys who came from the '70s, they're now co-stars in front of these younger actors who are talented, but those younger actors had to bring their A game. So first and foremost, a Gene Hackman film you should check out from the '90s, The Firm with Tom Cruise. Fantastic film. Really good film. Tom did something smart back then. Like he said, I want to act against these dudes. You get Rain Man. He's in front of Dustin Hoffman for Rain Man. He's in front of Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. Like Tom was doing some smart stuff. And acting in front of Gene Hackman in The Firm, he had to bring his A game. Second film. Now, but Tom wasn't a theater guy. He acted some in high school, but he wasn't a theater guy. Then we get to a guy who's actually did theater and has gone back to theater now at 70 years old, Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington and Crimson Tide should be on your list of the top 3 films to see. That is a fantastic film with Denzel and Gene Hackman. And Denzel at that point was a rising great actor, and he had to bring his A game against Gene Hackman. Oh, the intensity between those two is just as intense as like Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men. The difference is Gene and Denzel did it for the whole movie. Fantastic film. So Denzel's a theater guy. Go back to a non-theater guy, Will Smith, Enemy of the State. Will Smith was coming off The Fresh Prince, Independence Day. He's Big Willie, but up against Gene Hackman, Will had to bring his A game for real. And Gene Hackman wasn't playing around with Will. And in fact, Gene probably made Will a better actor from that film. That film also had Regina King in it as Will's wife. Enemy of the State. I saw it when we were locked down. I watched that film again. It's like you forget, because when you talk about Will Smith films, you kind of forget about Enemy of the State, man. It's a fantastic film, man. Shout out to Gene Hackman and all of these co-starring roles, man. Fantastic thing. The thing is that kind of troubles me. So let's go back to 1967. So I mentioned how that was a pivotal year. It's pivotal because Bonnie and Clyde was a hit, and you got Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty's a classic, good-looking guy. And then The Graduate was a hit with Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman was short, and he looked more of a character actor, but he became a leading man. And that was important because moving forward, you can have a guy who was short, like Al Pacino, I forgot, I'll say Pacino. Pacino's short. Looks like a character actor, but he became a leading man. But you have Robert Redford, tall guy, good looking. But it says like, hey, we have leading men and also character actors. The problem that we have today is that all these guys look like Robert Redford. They all look like Warren Beatty. They're all good looking guys. They all got 6-pack abs. Ethan Hawke just said this recently. He's like, young actors today feel like as long as they drink their protein shakes, that makes you a great actor. And he said that doesn't make you a great actor. And it's true. Like, how many character actor looking dudes are we losing today? Because they're just going after guys who are really good looking. They look like they should be in vogue. And again, it's not a knock against them. It's not their fault they're good looking. But where's my Gene Hackmans today? Where's my Dustin Hoffmans today? Where's my Pacinos today? All because they don't have a six-pack ad. Timothy Chalamet said that before. He auditioned for the Hunger Games and he didn't have that look, and that made him go the independent route. But he's the guy that's still around now versus those guys from the Hunger Games. But I digress. So rest in peace, Gene Hackman, one of the greatest theater actors, movie actors ever. What is your favorite Gene Hackman movie? And tell me a movie that I did not mention that we all need to check out. Rest in peace, Gene. Rest in peace, Popeye Doyle. rest in peace to the greatest.